Here's a sales scenario for you. You've got a prospect, inbound or outbound, it doesn't matter, but you're very excited. You create a free strategy deck or a pitch deck, and then you jump on a call. Basically, you're giving away your thinking and work for free because you want to quote unquote try and convince to close the client. And then you email your sales proposal because you were feeling very good about the sales call. They had good feedback on what you've shown them, but then nada. You don't hear from the client. You follow up several times. You ended up being ghosted by that prospect that you've just given some free work some free work, and you end up with wasted hours and energy. The good news is, if this is something that you're familiar with, all of these can be avoided simply by knowing how to vet your client. And in this episode, I will share a simple framework to help you avoid spending resources, energy, and time to a prospect who's never gonna become a client in the first place. If you learn this, you're gonna have a tool that will allow you to never chase unfit prospects ever again. In my sales career, I've closed multiple 10K to 25K clients. And what I've found is that there are 4 key factors that lead to a closed sale. I like to think of them in 4 quadrants. And so this is what I call the 4 quadrants of sales conversion. The first one is the need. It starts with the prospect having a need, right? And usually this is their ask that triggers the sales conversation. It can be branding, website, copywriting, ghostwriting, whatever you can think of as a service that you have. It's usually going to be their first ask. If a need is present, there can be a sale. But the caveat is 99% of the time, the ask of the prospect doesn't reflect the real problem of why they need your service. The way you can solve that challenge is by applying what I call the onion peeling strategy in sales, wherein if you get an inquiry from a prospect that says, hey, how much is your service for a full brand development? In short, they need, whether that's a new logo, a new branding. You don't go out and just share your price and be excited. Instead, you want to be able to move them into a proper forum, usually in a sales call, and ask them the right questions. So you sort of like you're peeling the onion until you get into the heart of the problem. So that's the first quadrant in our framework: uncovering the need and peeling what the need is really all about. What's the real motivation behind the ask? The second quadrant is the urgency. In my many prospect conversations, what I've seen is a need without urgency is basically a thought. So you might get someone who was just thinking about, what if I do this? What would be the price point? Maybe it's nice to have a new website or what have you. But an urgent need is real pain. So when you encounter a prospect who is eager to move forward, it shows that they have the intent to act. Because ultimately, when you're interacting on sales with a prospect, you want to reach a common ground where you're going to offer your service, sell your service, and they're going to be willing to pay for that service because it helps them solve a problem or address a need. So if not, if you don't see any urgency, you got to tread carefully, as it can be sign that the timing isn't right. And usually that's where all the ghosting happens, right? So the third quadrant in our framework would be the budget. Sales is a value exchange. Your client pays you money, for your service and you solve a problem with your service so the client pays you money. So it's basically like a value exchange. So one of the things that you want to be able to gauge is whether you and the prospect have a financial fit. You do that by validating if there's a funding for your prospect and whether that funding level coincides or is at par with the level of your pricing. Because no matter how great the conversation is, no matter how great the fit is between their need and your expertise, if there's no budget, there simply cannot be an exchange. So, an ethos that I have in my one on one sales consulting and coaching programs is that you need to be able to talk about money candidly and talk about it in the soonest possible time, because you don't want to spend a lot of energy and resources doing the work, vetting the client, etc., only to find out towards the end that you're in a stalemate because you couldn't meet on a pricing that would work for both of you. And the last quadrant, which is the fourth quadrant in this framework that will help you close more clients, is the decision dynamics. The finality of any sale comes from a decision maker. So you need to know how would your prospect make that decision of whether they would or would not work with you. I've had some experiences where I would talk to somebody and we will have several exchanges, several interactions, but we couldn't close the deal simply because he's not in the position to make that call. So you want to be able to navigate the decision dynamics and bring in the right people, whether that's one person or multiple persons who have the say and who have the capability and power to make a decision. So check if it's like a sole ownership, is it a partnership, is it a corporation? If it's a corporation, how do they make the decision? So get yourself in front of the one who's deciding. So those are the 4 sales conversion quadrants that I feel like if you're just able to really master this, you're going to increase your level of conversion rate, and at the same time you're going to decrease the amount of time and energy that you will be wasting if you keep on dealing with unfit prospects in the first place. So to recap, those 4 sales conversion quadrants would be the need, the urgency, the budget, or the decision dynamics. So the next time you will be encountering your prospect or you're dealing with an inquiry, bear this in mind. Go around these 4 quadrants so that you will be able to qualify or vet your client, your prospect much, much more effectively, and watch your sales becomes better and watch your sales process be more refined. I hope that was helpful and see you in the next episode.